Going to the theater to watch a film for the first time since the start of the pandemic was truly something. Although I've been through the process many times before, going up the steps, watching the trailers, and yes, even seeing the same Nicole Kidman AMC ad for the 5 millionth time made me happy beyond words. Everyone has a different take on how a film should be experienced, but I'm a firm believer that theaters are the best way to do so. Audiences can be drastically varied from one another as well, and the contrast the hype of seeing a Marvel movie on opening day with a full crowd compared to the polar opposite, sitting in a near-empty, tiny theater to witness Apichatpong Weerasethakul's Memoria, shows the power over emotion in which a singular room can hold. Memoria is simply unlike anything else. Having already seen many of Joe's films before myself, I was incredibly excited to hear that Neon was releasing it specially, in a never-ending release in which it would be moving from city to city, theater to theater, week by week, playing in front of only one solitary audience at any given time. However, this style of release ended in April, and Neon also decided that they weren't going to release a physical copy. This added another level of intrigue to the film, and it only made me more interested in seeing it the way it was intended to be. If this does one day get a widespread physical release, I doubt that watching it will even be remotely the same as it was in the theater. Most mainstream films rely on visual spectacle, detailed narratives, or beloved people and characters to capture the audience's attention. Music often plays a significant role in movies, but its presence isn't usually the driving force in the story. I previously mentioned how much I enjoy a film whenever one factor is maximized to its full potential, like Berrettini's Boiling Point, Malik's Knight of Cups, and Demi's Stop Making Sense. Memoria uses sound in particular, a sound, to propel it further. Here are the films mentioned/discussed in the video, so as always be wary of spoilers, especially for Memoria. Time and its passing are of the utmost importance in Memoria. Before it starts, there is a 10-minute segment featuring Director Joe's notes during the filming process. Complete silence is requested of the audience, and the segment itself reciprocates the sentiment. The scenery is presented while the lights remain on, preparing the viewer to transition into the world of Memoria. As one begins to immerse themselves, the line between reality and fiction becomes blurred in real time. In normal circumstances, when a film begins in the theater, the lights dim and do not come back on until the very end. During these 10 minutes, however, the silence presents a feeling of uncertainty. We aren't experiencing the film just yet, but we aren't fully in our own reality. I thought of David Lowery's film A Ghost Story concerning this introduction and how it ties in with the many themes later presented. Both films are exceptionally meta in terms of their presentation, since they integrate both the viewer and the character into the experience, ultimately allowing them to spectate one another. There is another common theme that I noticed present in both, in relation to the ending revelation. Joe's films are considered by many to cross into the space between dreams and sleep, lingering forever between the unknown. The pre-show is a perfect example of how this concept is integrated within the audience. Memoria isn't a film for everyone, and some skeptics will consider it to be boring and complain that nothing happens. While it may seem like this on the surface, the true experience lies not within what is merely occurring in the action, but in the connection between it and how it makes one feel. The sound design in the film is among the best I've ever experienced in the theater, and its wide array of meanings, along with its mesmerizing presence in the narrative, provide something extraordinary. The film begins with the brilliant Tilda Swinton's character, Jessica, being awakened by a loud booming noise. Although I knew the film was centered around this noise, the first boom surprisingly caught me off guard and startled me the most. We later see her visit her sister in the hospital and learn more about an excavation taking place in the area. The film's pace is quite slow and off-putting to some viewers. There's a factor beneath the surface that transports you to this world, though: the boom itself. Jessica becomes increasingly bothered by the boom and seeks out the help of a sound engineer named Hernan, who helps her recreate the noise from scratch. Nothing is left out, and we repeatedly hear the synthetic sounds created by the computer, drawing us back to the first noise we heard in the beginning. This scene in particular creates an atmosphere where we as spectators are going through the same thing as Jessica, attempting to find the origin of the sound while deciphering its meaning. Eventually, Hernan manages to recreate the sound, but something still feels off.
Entonces, tu sonido no es una canción.
No, es un sonido. Es difícil de explicar.
¿Y dónde lo escuchaste?
En un cuarto. Es como una bola enorme de concreto que cae en un fondo de metal. rodeada de agua de mar. De pronto es imposible.
No. De hecho, después de hablar con Juan, yo preparé unos sonidos.
¿De verdad?
Sí. ¿Qué tan grande es la bola de concreto? How big?
Bang. And then it shrinks. I mean, it probably sounds differently in my head.
Many seemingly normal events unfold as we follow Jessica throughout her life. However, all of them have a tinge of strangeness. The events aren't quite as prolonged and monotonous as in Chantal Akerman's Jean Dielman, but they have a similar effect. Something must occur, and although nothing has been revealed to us yet, we know that the happenings presented to us on the surface level go far deeper. Insight is also given to both the main characters' lives and how they operate on a day-to-day basis. Both of these characters' ritualized routines that surround their lives offer a deeper level of intrigue. We don't know why her sister is ill, what the sound is, and as soon as we learn more about Hernan, he mysteriously disappears. The odd nature of the boom and how we expect it to appear at certain times is intrinsically connected with the oddities of normal life. The sound works as a behavioral modification for Jessica since she slowly begins to build her life around it, sometimes consciously and other times not. All of the film's events lie at the root of the sound, causing her friendship with Hernan to disappear along with him. There is no trace of him, and no one working at the studio has even heard of his name. In terms of the current state of the world, the pandemic is our loud boom. At first, it seems like a small event in which an individual does not need to feel concerned. After it becomes inevitably intertwined with everyone's lives, we seek help from higher, more educated authorities. They give us the help we need, but there's only so much someone can do for the individual, and just as Hernan disappears, we are left on our own to protect one another. After the boom arises, it is seemingly always present. There are two ways in which its effect can be interpreted, from the viewer's point of view and Jessica's point of view. To Jessica, the sound appears and she is only affected during the moment. The aftermath of each reverberation lingers for a short while, as demonstrated by her reaction when she wakes up or when she's sitting down at a restaurant. On the other hand, the audience is constantly waiting to hear the next boom, and after being taken aback by the first one, it never leaves the mind. To us now, the constant fluctuation of the pandemic is comparable to this. Some have moved on while others are trapped. There are many interpretations of the deeper meaning of this sound, both within the story and outside of it, but that was one connection that came to my mind after watching. Along with constantly thinking about the sound, the viewer is often thrown into a trance-like state since many of the scenes have an indescribable aura to them. After a certain period, Jessica wanders into the countryside alone, not knowing what lies ahead of her. We are still left in the dark. She then meets another man also named Hernan Bedoya, and the viewer can instantly notice that his identity and way of living are vastly distinct from those around him. Joe's other works often feature normal people who return to Earth either in different forms or normal appearances that disguise the true being underneath. Many of these spirits seem like normal people, but are not. In Uncle Boonmay, who can recall his past lives, and Cemetery of Splendor, this is prominently featured. Normal places have an element of magic and wonder to them. One of my favorite parts of Memoria lies within Hernan and Jessica's prolonged conversation, and Hernan specifically mentions that he doesn't watch any TV or movies because he remembers everything. This resonated with how, although I will most likely never see Memoria again on physical media, the experience in the theater will forever be ingrained in my mind because of the sound. Since there isn't any mainstream film quite like Memoria, it will be easy to distinguish that experience from anything else. The sound started the story, so it only makes sense for it to continue driving it. This Hernan lives completely in solitude and is spiritually connected with the world around him. At one point, he sleeps, seemingly simulating death. Joe chooses to show the entire cycle, from the moment of rest to the awakening. In this segment, the concept of silence is brought back into play, and it acts as a contrast to the boom. One doesn't realize it until the film is finished, but the 10-minute sequence gave the first insight into how balance must always be present in anything. For every loud noise and its consequences, there's an equal amount of silence to match it. Hernan invites Jessica into where he lives, and their memories begin to intertwine in a harrowing sequence of mystery and beauty. A genuine connection is found between the two of them, and Jessica accepts the differences that they have from one another. The sound has led her exactly to where she needs to be. This line in particular, "Why are you crying? They are not your memories," showcases the importance of the understanding between both characters. The cyclicity of time in particular and the interconnectedness of it with humans is key to interpreting this scene for me. Although Jessica hasn't truly lived through what others have, the connection she forges through relationships and other people's memories is what causes these moments to live on. Without the boom, Jessica wouldn't have been able to enter the perspective of her non and eventually accept her fate. Time will pass, but events and things of importance greater than ourselves will always remain, meaning will be found in the end. These memories live on just as we do in spirit. In Denis Villeneuve's Arrival, time isn't something to be looked at in a line, but in a circle. No matter what point you are in the circle, you are always the same distance away from the opposite side. Both ends of the circle overlap. If we draw the line across the circle, the dots will always connect. We may not realize it at first, but something on the other side can directly relate to the other. Following the events of the memory sequence, Jessica looks out the window. The final boom occurs, and to me, she has found solace. Something that has been there all along disappears without a trace, something completely unexpected. The source is revealed, and it prompts complete shock throughout the audience. No one could have guessed it. Her acceptance that the sound is there, and that it will always remain a part of her life, is what makes it go away. The mysterious ship departs, even if she doesn't realize it. Events will always connect with one another, and everything happens for a reason. The concepts and memories that make us human will universally be forged, but it might not happen in the same way for everyone. For Jessica, it's the sound and where it leads her. For C, in A Ghost Story, it's the repeated observation of time and how unknown, random instances have the ultimate significance. At the end of the film, it is revealed that an earthquake was registered in the distance, but the source still remains unidentified. The earthquake allowed the excavation in the area I previously mentioned to be fully accessible. What there was in the beginning always will remain, but time takes its course and moves in the never-ending circle, which can be difficult to trace. In Memoria, it's an intangible noise that leads Jessica on her path. In A Ghost Story, it's the sound made by the piano, which C realizes that the end is built into the beginning. A notable quote from Charlie Kaufman's Synecdoche, New York, which is connected to these works. Their fates are accepted in different ways, since one knows the meaning behind their journey, while the other is content with the journey's duration. Both of these films have a powerful effect, the ability to simply exhibit what is happening on the screen while making the viewer feel oblivious. We go through these events in real time, but we are sometimes interrupted by various disruptions, like the interwoven memories Jessica undergoes and the time loop that C goes through. Displaying simplicity on the surface while having true depth at one's core is a difficult task to achieve, but both of these are wonderful examples of how it can be utilized. Throughout these past few years, we have spent so much more time with ourselves. Qualities and feelings locked deep within us that have rumbled within our core were finally unearthed. Despite the rough state of the world in recent terms, I would not have bolstered my love for cinema without it. I wouldn't change my experience for anything, even though it has been rough at times, and I'm sure many of you can say the same. The love for it has always been there, though. All it took was an event that no one would have foreseen and the time it took to sink in. I encourage you to accept whatever comes your way and embrace the unknown. Everything is connected in some way or another, and I believe that this is the reason why small decisions matter just as much as large consequences. If you haven't seen Memoria yet, please check it out in your local art house theater. It might not be for you in the end, but I promise that the feeling of the film is unlike anything else. Thank you for watching the video. Please let me know your thoughts on this meditative masterwork in the comments below. If you enjoy my work and would like to support me even further, please consider checking out my Patreon down below in the description. Have a splendid day, and be sure to embrace the unexpected in your life and never stop listening to The Rumble.